Hey everybody, it's been a week. Sadly, my normal co-host ain't here because, well, he has to work and his schedule's all over the place. But I have a guest this time, and I hinted it last time when Top Keck was on. Say hi.
Say hi.
Hi, Josh.
I am not high though, unfortunately.
Uh, I that's one thing I do not understand. People, or I'm like, well, I have no interest in inebriation or anything like that, and I don't understand why people do it.
I mean, I understand why people do it, but personally, I don't. I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life. I've never taken a drug not prescribed to me by a doctor. I've never had a cigarette. I just don't understand it. I remember when I was in high school, all the underage drinking, people would be like, "Oh man, I woke up in a ditch. I was covered in vomit. I didn't remember anything. It was great. Let's do that again." And I'm just like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Yeah. I do like how my mom approached alcohol with me or mainly with my brother because I didn't start drinking or at least drinking like beer or something every now and then until I hit 30. But what my brother did when he turned 18, she said flat out, "Okay, I know you're going to do this, so you're allowed to drink at home where you're supervised, and I do the purchasing for you, and I control how much you drink." And now he rarely drinks it at all. And if he wants to get drunk, it's only like once every 3 or 4 months because it was demystified for him.
I don't see what the allure is.
Yeah.
And again, I've never tried it, but at the same time, I've never tried home dentistry in my garage by myself. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't like that either.
Yeah.
So I don't need to try something to know I won't like it. Like, hey, how do you know you won't like cutting your finger off with a gardening shears? Because I'm pretty sure I don't need to experience that to know I won't like that.
Yeah, pretty much. But I just like how my mom handled it, though. Just said flat out, "Okay, here you go," and it demystified for him because he was going to turn out to be one of those people that would binge drink once he hit 21. But since she did that, he doesn't do it now.
Well, see, I also grew up with a massively physically and emotionally abusive alcoholic father. That it's like I
Yeah.
saw the firsthand, and I do mean firsthand abuse that comes with a mean drunk. And I've had other people. I remember when I was in grade school, there were friends who would stay over at my house because it was just safer over there than at their house because mom was so drunk she was possibly suicidal and everything. And it's like, just stay by my house. You're safer over here.
Yeah. I'm like, thankfully, I didn't experience that, but what I had experienced with my family was having cousins and siblings who were heroin addicts. I think that's kind of worse.
Well, but heroin addicts fall asleep. Drunks want to do shit.
Right. Though I have lost family members to that, so that's why I'm kind of hesitant to say if it's better or worse or not.
Hey, I don't even like taking prescribed drugs if they're like an opiate or something.
Yeah, I
For
refuse to
instance,
touch those. I refuse to touch those.
for instance, when I don't know if you heard the interview I did with Sid Haig a few years ago,
I
maybe
I
4 or 5 years
I
ago.
may have, but I probably will have to pull up that old episode.
Well, you can't tell when you listen to it, and I think that to suck my own dick a little bit, that's my professionalism. I had 3 teeth pulled that day, and I was still fucked up on the drugs that they gave me, and I had an entire bottle of liquid Vicodin. And
Yeesh.
liquids are more stronger than pills. And I refuse to take that Vicodin because I'm like, man, there's a real good chance I'm going to get addicted to this shit. And I don't need this. I remember, even after a surgery, the pain pills they would give you, it would just fuck up your brain. It's like you wait. It's like your brain feels like it's covered in cobwebs and you can't think. And all I think of is, why do people want to feel like this?
I
People
don't
intentionally
understand.
take morphine because this is the feeling they want. And I don't understand that. That'd be like saying, I think my life would be better if I were a zombie.
Yeah, pretty much. It's I've I've taken a morphine, or not a morphine, a Vicodin, or half a Vicodin once, and that was for a prescription, and I did not like what it did to me, and I was like, never again. And the next time they prescribed it after I had a tooth pulled, I'm like, no, just give me ibuprofen, that works.
Yeah, I just soldiered through. But like I said, if you go back and listen to that Sid Haig interview on Radiodrome, I'm totally. I mean, I couldn't even feel my jaw. That interview was like an hour after I got back from the dentist, and I think I covered pretty well because maybe now that I've said that, you go back and you might hear a little slurring or something. But most people would never guess that I was still fucked up on painkillers when I did that.
No, I've done videos with me getting back from a dentist. It's pretty obvious that I couldn't feel my lower jaw.
I just soldiered through. I'm like, you know what? I got the interview with Sid Haig scheduled today. I'm not going to miss talking to Sid fucking Haig.
Right. I can understand that. If you got something you want to stick to it, that's professional. So we went on this little tangent, but I do have a few topics since I got you on the show that I wanted to discuss. This first one I'm going to discuss is, it's last minute because it just happened 2 days ago. We had to go vote. And did your voting, or did your election area make you do something as stupid as they did for me?
Which would be?
I show up at the location that I voted for the past several times I had to do it, because it's like 3 blocks from my house. And then they tell me, oh, you're in this district now, and you have to go to a location which we don't know where it is.
I've had that shit before. Back when I was married, the house we had, the polling place was like, just like you, a couple of blocks away, but it was technically in a different district, so you had to go all the way across. So I've dealt with that bullshit before.
Yeah, I'm like, I had to walk here. Why can't I do this here? And the lady is like, I don't know. I have to call this in. So I ended up doing a paper ballot.
Well, the whole blue wave turned out to be just that blue liquid that they pour into maxi pads in the commercials.
I really don't want to go into what the stale Cheeto in office is doing, as my normal co-host refers to him as.
Well, he threw a tantrum, and because he knows his power just got cut in half. But
yeah, it's annoying because I hear that enough support from my landlord boss man, because he's a supporter of the orange Cheeto.
Well, you're also talking to a guy right now who has been investigated by the Secret Service for, quote, threatening President Trump's life.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that on What the Fuck.
Because I threw a movie quote at him, and they said that constituted a threat. And the movie quote was from the really shitty Oliver Stone movie U-Turn. It said, "Thousands of people die every day. Why can't you be one of them?" And they took that as a threat against the president's life.
Yeah. They're getting to the point where they're trying to say, be careful what you say, and that evolves it. That's a slippery slope when we know where that goes. And I don't want that to go. I don't want to get to the point where, as you pointed at, is be careful what you think.
Well, because it's the same thing.
Yeah. Be
careful what you say is the same as be careful what you think. And that's a dangerous proposition, because that's some George Orwell 1984 Oceana shit right there. Because when you start policing how people think, then you're policing how people are. And that's where, like for instance, I think there should be no censorship. Now, there are lines you can cross. No censorship doesn't mean... Okay, free to say anything you want does not mean free from consequences, as I personally know. I can go into that if you want, but...
I'll spare you the details, but I can understand that, where I have certain stances that I stand idly by. Like, for instance, I honestly do not understand why the legal drinking age here isn't 18 instead of 21. Yet, at the age of 18, you can be enlisted into the Army. You're old enough to serve and get shot at, yet you're not old enough to drink. That makes no sense to me.
Well, I think more like a free speech kind of thing. Yeah. Like, Facebook banned, like, a dead baby joke page. And it's like, I do personally find that offensive. I think it's ridiculous. But at the same time, if that's what they want to do, it's the same way. I'm not a Nazi. I don't endorse Nazi views in any way. In fact, I'm more a hippie liberal than anything. But I also say the Daily Stormer and Alex Jones and shit, they have a right to speak. Now, that's not the same as they have a right to
Okay,
be on every platform.
okay, when you say Alex Jones, I know of two Alex Joneses online. The actual Alex Jones, who we can honestly say is bat squeak insane, or underwater Alex Jones on heel turn, who is actually very entertaining to listen to because he just makes fun of everybody.
I'm talking about the fact that everyone was like, "Oh, they're censoring Alex because their YouTube won't let him on, and they banned him from Twitter." That's not censoring.
No,
Now, if the government was saying
he broke guidelines. That's what he did.
yes, and he had been repeatedly told what would happen if he did, that's not censorship. You don't have a right to be on YouTube. You don't have a right to be on Twitter. Now, if the government had come down and said, you need to shut the fuck up, they'd taken his servers away or something like that,
Then
that
yes.
would be one thing. But, it's like, unfortunately, I have to defend Nazis with the Daily Stormer. When they were having their domains taken from them, that was bordering on taking away their right to be ignorant, racist assholes.
I'm like, they have the right to do that, but at the same time, they also have the right to to receive said consequences for their actions. I'm like, you can feel that way. I'm fine, but each stance comes with pros and cons, and if you can't deal with that, that's a major issue.
I mean, I've lost 2 book deals because of the crazy shit I've said on Twitter and on Facebook, where they were almost locked in, and it was like, this guy is just too fucking nuts. We don't know what he's going to do on Twitter or on Facebook. He's going to make some terrible joke about hookers or about killing somebody or strangling a baby. And this guy is just too crazy. I've lost 2 major book deals because of the crazy shit that I've said online. And you'll notice it also didn't slow me down. It didn't stop me from saying crazy shit. It was just, you are not free from consequences. And I know this better than anybody.
Yeah, pretty much. I completely and utterly sympathize with that. But that was just a small topic I wanted to go into, and the actual thing I want to talk about. You said you were going to do this eventually on Radiodrome, and you even messaged me about it. I just want to talk about it a little bit because I'm pretty sure we have some stories, because it'll lead into the other topic I'd like to discuss. I've done it. You've done it. Have any funny stories about when you were back in the days when you were bootlegging?
I don't know if funny is the right
Or
word, but
anything
I have a lot of stories because the old VHS bootleg scene was it's almost like an alien environment to anyone who was maybe even born in the late 90s, because you guys don't understand what it was like to not have everything on demand, to not have shit show up on, YouTube doesn't exist. Hell, torrents barely exist at this point.
Like, the earliest I remember would be like LimeWire and Napster and stuff like that, and I'm only 32.
Well,
I bootlegged, or I'm like, I've done bootleg DVDs because that's what my father did, and he did bootleg VHS. So
this is totally offline. The internet comes into a play later, but only to exchange lists. Everything is done via the mail. They're done by mailing lists. You photocopy all the stuff you've got and you trade it with other traders, or you take it to a comic book convention or a horror convention. You sell your obvious bootleg horror movies there, or a lot of times the old Marvel cartoons from the 60s. Captain America throws his mighty shield. Like, people would be selling sets of that because that was unavailable anywhere else, and this was all done person to person, one at a time.
Yeah, I did that.
This was not just uploading or downloading a file.
No, we didn't do that either.
We
didn't do that either. We actually made physical copies of everything, and we had, or like my dad, I remember he would do this. He would either rent videos or DVDs or like when DVD first came out, he would rent DVDs from the various video stores, or checking them out at the library. He had software on his computer where he could rip it decode it, and then burn it to an archival backup, and then he would just sell those for people. Plus, he would also bootleg movies and stuff like that you would find at flea markets. He also did this with VHS as well.
Well, the bootleg scene was less about actually bootlegging commercially available material,
but getting more stuff, getting stuff that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah, old Geraldo episodes, TV specials that were aired one time in 1968 and then never aired again, weird import movies, uncut movies were a big thing because, especially with the Italian movies from the late 70s, those were almost always just eviscerated when they came to America, usually missing 15, 20 minutes of gore. But then all of these, for some reason, I guess the big market in Japan, almost all of these would get released completely uncut on Japanese Laserdisc. So you'd have somebody in Japan that would make a VHS copy of the Laserdisc, and then that would start going around, and then you'd have all these different scenes from, like, instead of Seven Doors of Death, which is the Fulci movie in America, The Beyond, which is the uncut version, and it's like, look at how much more gore is in this. A lot of that kind of stuff, or movies that, like Michael Mann's The Keep. I mean, that as far as I know, is still not on DVD, let alone the NBC version, which has got a different ending and like 20 minutes of alternate scenes that aren't in any other cut of the movie. Or like Michael Crichton's Looker, the TV version it's got not a totally different ending, but near the end of the movie, one of the bad guy characters just switches sides and becomes a good guy, and it's like, well, where the fuck did that come from? Oh, because of all the stuff that made him switch sides was all cut out of the movie, but when it was shown on NBC, all those scenes were included. It's like, okay, why are those not in the movie? So I want to see those.
Yeah, that leads into the main topic I want to discuss, is just basically various forms of media that you can't legally actually get nowadays because of it's no longer in print or it never made the jump. I have a few examples from the video game realm or the world, basically, as well as some movies I can think of. But you have a vast knowledge when it comes to at least movies and TV shows that you can't actually get anywhere without bootlegging it.
Well, there's a ton of TV shows, like some short-lived TV show that was canceled after 7 episodes, has no major stars in it. That's never going to get a DVD release. I've got this show on tape from, I was 96, 97, called Winnetka Road, canceled after 5 episodes. That's never. It's about a family in Wisconsin running a video store, and it's a dramedy. That's never going to show up on DVD. You've got all these weird sitcoms from the 80s that were canceled after 8, 10 episodes. They've got no stars in them. There's no reason for anybody to go dig these up and look for the rights. These are never going to make it to DVD. You've got all these weird action shows and syndicated shows from the 80s. There's no interest, except there is interest, and that's the thing. People still want these things, but there's not enough interest for the cost involved, or there's the bullshit that comes with the getting the rights, because then you have to relicense all the music, and there's the classic Werewolf situation where the Fox show Werewolf was unable to relicense 2 songs for the series, and they're in key episodes you can't just skip, and because the show was low budget, it was shot in mono, or it was shot normally, but then mixed in mono, so the soundtrack and the dialogue are married together.
Yeah,
so there's no way to remove the music without removing all the sound effects and dialogue as well. So it's literally impossible, because you see that in a lot of shows, Miami Vice or whatnot. They'll just plunk out a song and plunk a new song in, because those are on separate audio tracks, because that had a big budget. A show like Werewolf, you literally can't. There's no way to remove the song without completely removing the audio. That's why WKRP is worthless on DVD. They couldn't relicense the bulk of the music, although the news set claims that they've got most of the. No, they don't. There's still a lot of key songs missing. And so you go, you know what? I'll go to the bootleg circuit. Why? those have all the music and they aren't overdubbed. Because in WKRP's case, what they did is they would have the music, the songs removed, which would also remove the dialogue. So they couldn't get the actors back. They would just have sound-alikes redub the dialogue. And it's a clusterfuck. It's unwatchable. It's like, I'd rather you not even release WKRP than put these monstrosities out. If you can't relicense the music, which is an issue of my own, I'm just so sick of this music relicensing thing. Okay? Yes, I know your contract didn't specifically say it was licensed for DVD or home media. You greedy motherfuckers. You already got paid.
Yeah, that's a big issue when it comes to like licensing and stuff like that. Don't get me started on certain video games I like to play that are only available in Japan. One series that I love to play different games from, but will never see the light of day here due to licensing issues, would be the Super Robot Tyson series. And because it's basically a RPG with a bunch of crossover, just a bunch of different giant mech anime. But the thing is, they're all owned by one company in Japan, Bandai. But here in the States, 50 different companies own the rights. And they're all going to fight over, oh, I get this much money, or no, I get this much money, I get this much money. And there's like 50 or so games in the series.
Well, the way it usually worked here is, now, sometimes some people saw the future. A lot of times they didn't. Like, say you got a show like 21 Jump Street or Miami Vice. No, nobody was putting out TV shows on VHS back then. You know, it was a very rare thing. I mean, yeah, you'd have Star Trek or Doctor Who or something like that. But in general, nobody was putting out TV shows on VHS back in the 80s. So it was, we want, say, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. We want to use Girls Just Want to Have Fun in a 21 Jump Street episode. Well, that'll be, $5,000. Or you can pay $10,000 and also have the rights for home media. And they're like, no, we don't need that. So then they go to try and put them on video, and it's like, oh no, you don't just get to pay that $5,000 that you slacked on. Now I want $50,000 for home video rights.
I can understand that. It's a pain in the butt, but whatever. Another game that I really would like you to play because it would be right up your alley, that because of just the sheer references within it, and it's another crossover thing, and licensing issues again here, it will never see the light of day in the United States. There's an old Smash Brothers clone for GameCube as well as PlayStation 2 by the name of Dream Mix TV World Fighters. This game is a crossover of 3 companies. It has Solid Snake, Bomberman, and Optimus Prime as actual playable characters in it.
Well, I mean, go back and look at, I think it was the first release of Shinobi, where they had Batman, Godzilla, and Spider-Man as some of the end bosses.
Yeah, that was Revenge of Shinobi for Sega Genesis. I remember Spider-Man's still in it.
Well, he's not Spider-Man. He's Man-Spider.
No, that's Spider-Man. I don't care. He's red and blue and climbs walls.
And they called Batman something else, like you couldn't call him Man-Bat because that's an actual Batman villain, but it was something along those lines. But yeah, they used to do that shit all the time. My brother is a big wrestling guy, and he was showing me, it wasn't like WWF or anything, some weird wrestling league where they had Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. They didn't call them that, but it's like 2 of the wrestlers were definitely Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, and it's like, how did you not get sued?
I don't know. They changed just enough specifically so that they couldn't get sued. That's usually what most companies do. He's not Freddy Krueger. He's Sharp Hand Joe. He's not Jason. He's Bob with a machete.
Maybe, but it's the unlicensed shit happens all the time. But like, to go back to the music, the reason I picked Girls Just Want to Have Fun is I think Cyndi Lauper is a big problem in the relicensing music arena. She never, or very rarely, will allow her stuff to be relicensed. Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun is the reason Werewolf can't come out on DVD. They couldn't relicense that song for Miami Vice. 21 Jump Street couldn't relicense that song. Cyndi Lauper has basically said, I don't want my music used in any of these shows. So Cyndi Lauper, it's also sometimes the artist is just like, I don't want it. I don't care how much you pay me. I don't want that in there anymore. Too bad.
It's usually when I do stuff like this, I always get permission first and be like, hey, this is going to still be cool. This is going to be an issue that comes out later on when I actually promote videos and stuff like that. Which, yeah, again, leading into this, you're not the first person I've had from a radio, or basically 1201 or whatever, on my channel. I've also done stuff with Hart D. Fisher. And I've even asked him flat out, I'm like, do you mind if I share everything that we discuss on here? He's like, oh, no, more people to hear it's better. I like when people actually are cool with that and then try not to renege on it later.
Well, see, there's a certain give and take where, like, if you're at the level of, a Cyndi Lauper, you don't need anyone to share your stuff. You don't need the publicity. You don't need a little leg up. People like Hart, Brad Jones, people like me, we can always use somebody that maybe hadn't listened to us before, didn't know we were doing something. You get to a certain level and the paradigm shifts, and it's like, you need me more than I need you. And there you get to a certain level of that. And like, I hate that. I can't stand the ego that comes with, quote, famous people. It bugs the hell out of me, John. It's annoying as hell. I've tried to get interviews for Radiodrome, and people are like, yeah, your show is just not big enough for me to appear on. It's like, well, fuck you. I don't want you on my show then, you arrogant shit.
I prefer to take like what Lordcat does and like, even with his major fan base, he's like, yeah, I'll just talk to you. I don't care. If people don't like it, whatever.
I've been turned down for many, many interviews that I've tried to get because the show is not big enough. But then they'll go on that fucking insipid Mark Maron podcast. Why? Because he's got 1 million listeners. But so that's worth their time. But to come onto my show, it's not worth it.
All they care about is basically the numbers, and that's something I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that before where, usually you don't get to talk to the person when you're trying to set something up. You have to go through all of their people, which is another problem I have. But when you're going through their people, one of the first questions that's usually asked, if they're maybe not even an A-lister, but like a B-lister, I'm not using him specifically, but just like a Bruce Campbell or something like that, the answer will be, what kind of numbers does your show pull in? Because that's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned about whether maybe Bruce will have a really good conversation or have a good time. It's, what kind of numbers do you have?
Again, I usually that's another thing I have an issue with as well. I'm like, hey, I just think this would be kind of cool to discuss. And I'm like, we share some similar ideas. I think we can have a decent conversation or at least swap stories or whatnot. And you don't even want to take the time of day to do that. And I have to go through their special person just to say, hey, can you do this, please? That makes no sense to me either.
Well, I mean, sometimes like for the book I'm writing, I tried to get a hold of Dennis Franz, not for Radiodrome, but because I wanted to talk to him about a pilot for my book. And I had to go through his manager. So I never spoke to Dennis Franz personally, but I spoke to his manager, and she was very, very nice. And she relayed my questions and gave me back the answers. So it was just, he's a private guy now. He's dropped out of the spotlight. He doesn't act or anything anymore. And, he just wants to be left alone. That's totally understandable.
Yeah, I can respect that too. It's the reason why the Lordcat doesn't stream 24/7 anymore. He was just done with the internet and got an actual life, and I applaud him for it.
But at the same time, you see that this is something that really bugs me. When you think you're talking, and you put the word talking in quotes, you're talking to the person you want to, but you're actually talking to one of their intermediaries. It drives me nuts. Like, again, I'll go to Bruce Campbell. He doesn't run his Twitter. Bruce Campbell constantly tweets all these funny things. Bruce Campbell doesn't actually do any of that. He literally has a social media team that handles his Twitter and Facebook. That kind of arrogant shit bugs the hell out of me.
I'm like,
then it should not be called Bruce Campbell's Twitter. It should be Bruce Campbell's social media team's Twitter.
I'm like, I can understand a team running a Twitter or another social media profile, but it's only for like a business or something like that. Because I've done that before in the past for like people that created social media profiles for their businesses and stuff like that. But if for an actual person to not do that, the only excuse I can think of is they don't know how to computer and they have to have someone do it for them. Other than that, it just makes no sense to me.
Usually it's they don't have time or they don't think it's worth it because, you see all these, like Gwyneth Paltrow tweeted this and, Susan Sarandon tweeted this. Now, I don't know in those two specific cases, but probably 90% of A-list Tom Cruise level movie stars that have Twitters, that's not them twitting. Yeah. And usually they don't even know what their social media team is twitting out there.
Yeah, it's just a sheer disconnect. They're too busy doing other things, and then someone does this for them without letting them know, hey. And then apparently they get their I'm like, the people who have their own teams that run their own Twitter, do they also have the blue check marks next to their name as proof them, like, yes, this is actually that person?
Well, it doesn't need to be that person to get that. It had the representatives of that person.
Well, yeah. They had to verify his address and stuff like that to say, yeah, that's him.
I actually had to add the real Josh Hadley to mine.
Because I know fake Josh is on the internet or on Twitter.
And it's just anything I put on Facebook, anything I tweet out, that's me. I don't have a social media team. And if I did, they would probably stop me from putting out a lot of the really, really bad jokes that I put out there, a lot of the bad black humor they would probably stop me from doing, which is also, I think, another reason a lot of these people have social media teams is to curb your bad impulses sometimes too.
But then there's also the other end of the spectrum where your social media file or profile is just bat squeak insane. But when you actually speak to the actual person, they're a collected and calm individual. They just use Twitter as like for shit posting or whatnot, just to say, hey, I'm just telling jokes here, but this is not the actual me. I'm just doing this because it's funny.
Well, what bugs me the most is, and this is usually when people run their own Twitter, is when they ignore you. Now, I don't mean that in I'm so important that you should pay attention to me, but like because I'm writing my book, I'll tweet out to somebody who I want to talk to, hey, I'm writing this book for Schiffer Publishing, it's blah, 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 I want to talk to you about this. Nothing. You'll see them tweeting left and right on other things, responding to other people, but nothing. It's like, you're not even worth telling I'm not interested. I'm okay if I contact you for something and you say I'm not interested, I don't have time, something like that. But I won't be ignored, John.
Makes sense. I'm kind of pretty much the same way when it comes to that, where I'm like, hey, I reached out to you and you're busy doing all sorts of stuff on this one platform and you didn't even bother to say no. Why? Why do you hate me?
Well, yeah, just don't ignore me. A no is fine. But acknowledge that I'm contacting you. I exist! God damn it!
I'm like, because I liked it that you respond to me on Facebook when I asked you to be on the show. You're like, okay. And even if you said no, I'm like, all right. I knew it was a long shot, but I gave him the option, and I'm live to tape, so everything, I'm not editing anything out. I'm like, I'm giving him, or I'm like, this would be kind of cool if we could do this. If not, oh well. But I like it when people get back to me like, yeah, okay, that sounds kind of cool. We can do this. Or, no, I don't have the time, or I'm just not interested in this type of thing, or I don't think we can find common ground to have a conversation.
I'm actually shocked sometimes, especially when I guess when I'm contacting people for my book, it's a little different than when I'm contacting people for Radiodrome. But I'm actually surprised at how many larger names have actually responded. They haven't always agreed to, for an interview, but I'm actually surprised at how many of them sometimes get back to you.
I'm like, when people actually take the time to at least respond, it actually shows some form of respect. I'm like, hey, I may not be interested, but at least I acknowledge that you're reaching out to me and saying, hey, would you like to do this? And if it isn't up your alley, okay, oh well, at least I asked and at least you took the time to say, nah. And I'm like, I actually see that as a sign of respect, even if you can disagree, or like if you disagree that this could be beneficial or whatnot, or basically, or we even want to do it or not. At least you took the time to say yes or no.
Yeah, just don't ignore me, and that's what I hate because you'll see Nathan Fillion. I'm just throwing out a name here. Like you'll see like Nathan Fillion interacting with his fans and making goofy jokes. Got 2 pilots that are in my book. I keep contacting him. Nothing. He will not respond. And it's like, I'm really starting to get annoyed at this point. Just tell me no then.
And I just don't know what to say about that, because usually most people I do reach out to, or like the few people that may actually have a following and that I actually do reach out to, do eventually take the time to get back to me. If they don't do it right away, I can understand that they have stuff to do. Like, you have a work schedule. When I reach out to Adam, when the 2 times that he was on the show, he has 2 kids, so as well as he has a brain tumor, so I understand if he doesn't get back to me right away. Life does get in the way, but if it's someone really big and they're still doing stuff on Twitter or online or whatnot, and they deliberately ignore you, then yes, I can see having issue with them.
It's very annoying. Like I am probably the lowest level you can probably be. Nobody listens to my stuff or reads my stuff. I'm aware of this. But when people do message me or email me, I have a policy. Even if it's, you fucking suck, I hate you, I hope you die, I will respond. It might take a few months, but I will respond to you.
I'm like, and I still don't understand why you have a fan base or a group of people that actually can't stand you. I'm like, because you're an actually fascinating individual to talk to, because you have a vast of knowledge and you're quite entertaining, in my opinion. I've been listening to you ever since you first started Radiodrome.
Well, I would disagree with that, but I have no self-confidence. So what it comes down to is there are people who I consider the problem with modern film and modern television. All they want is to be entertained, and they don't want any sort of quality. That they consider me too picky. Like, I'm picking apart all of these shockingly stupid things in the new Halloween movie, and they're like, can't you just enjoy it for what it is?
I have the same issue.
No, it should be better.
Yeah, I have the same issue with certain popular video games, which I do not understand why they have the fan base that they do. I've had the argument with a friend of mine that he says he likes this game because it plays itself, and I'm like, or that there's no actual thinking, because I like to play a lot of strategy RPGs and stuff like that. Games that actually make me think. And he's like, well, I don't want to think when I play a video game. And I'm like, well, then what's the point in playing it then?
Well, I hold things to a higher standard. Like just last night, my brother was watching the new episode of The Goldbergs. I can't stand that show, but hey, if you like it, fine. And part of it was in a Toys R Us, and they were going over G.I. Joe's, mask figures, stuff like this. And I'm like, that's inaccurate. Those are Gen 1 Transformers, which would have been from 1984. But if Mask is out, then that's about 1986 for that specific playset. Whereas Transformers the movie would have been out, which is Gen 3 for Transformers. So the Gen 1 Optimus Primes and Starscreams would not still be on the shelf. And my brother just turned to me and he goes, your personality is really, really grating. Can't you just enjoy something for what it is? And I'm like, no, it should be better.
I'm like, that's the same thing when it comes to like my forms of entertainment in video games. If you can't bother to take out the time to at least tell a decent story or whatnot, I can forgive a lot of things. Case in point, one of my favorite games for the 360 was when it came out was Deadly Premonition. The actual gameplay wasn't that great, and the actual graphics were very subpar, but it told a really good and compelling story, and it actually kept me invested, and the characters were actually human, to say, for a lack of a better word. And for those that haven't played it, if you manage to get to the end, and I'm not going to release any spoilers, but if you get to the end and you don't at least shed a tear, you have no soul. Because that's how compelling that story in that game actually is. And a lot of people ragged on it back in the day because they considered it a budget title, which it was when it was first released. But the developer actually took the time up to write a really good, compelling story.
Well, but see, that's why people hate me. They think I can't just enjoy something. And I can. I can enjoy stupid movies. I love terrible 70s exploitation films. But
I love certain stupid video games. Some of them you can't get here, but we'll go into that a little bit.
But it's you should be better. When without even having to look something up, I can tell you that's not how that works. Or like a profoundly stupid movie like Lucy with this whole, we only use 10% of our brains. If we could unlock the other 90%, we'd become superheroes, apparently. But that whole humans only use 10% of their brain thing was debunked in the 1970s, right? And then it's just, can't you just shut up and enjoy it? No, I fucking can't! You should be better. It's movies today that are stupid and people that the terrible things in them that are why movies are stupid. Right now, I think Hollywood is made... almost everything that comes out in Hollywood right now, John, I think is made specifically to piss me off.
I don't even go to the movies or watch movies anymore because I haven't done that in years. I've literally seen no point in it. And to give you an idea of what my favorite movie is of all time, and it actually came out 4 years before I was born, The Secret of NIMH. That's what I usually hold for a standard for, at least for quality. And
Secret of NIMH is a good movie.
Yeah.
but you have to have standards.
Yeah.
People are like, I just want to turn my brain off and watch Michael Bay blow shit up.
I don't understand that. I'm like, I don't even understand the phrase, I just want to turn my brain off when I'm trying to enjoy something. I'm like, I prefer stuff or entertainment that actually makes me think, because it actually encourages brain function and makes me honestly feel like a smarter person, because I'm actually, I have to actually think of what they're trying to say rather than, we just see a bunch of pretty colors and like, and jingle keys in front of somebody.
That's the reason that Cascading Thunder cunt Bonnie Hammer wanted to cancel Farscape back in the early 2000s, late 90s, because Farscape was a highly continuity-driven show where, sometimes the previously on that you needed to know could be, 3-4 minutes of stuff. You had to remember what happened in the last 7 episodes to follow this one. And she said, people don't want that. They've worked all day at their job, laying highway or, working in a sewer or something. They just want to come home and watch people shoot aliens. They don't want to have to remember what happened 7 episodes ago.
Boy, is that woman wrong. I could easily tell from just my personal experience of growing up, all my local families and friends would constantly watch stuff that would be continuity heavy, basically, or like syndicated and stuff like that. I grew up with family members who loved watching Deep Space Nine and Next Generation and Voyager, and those are very continuity heavy shows. Even though they're, let's not go into Voyager's quality because we can both nitpick that. But you can see stuff that actually tells a story and rewards the actual viewer for remembering stuff instead of just mindless stupidity or mindless entertainment, which again drives me away from certain video games like Call of Duty, which is basically hallway the shooter. I don't understand that. I don't understand the appeal for it.
See, when it comes to something like Call of Duty, now I want to say it was Black Ops 2, but don't quote me on that. I hate to say it, but sometimes you actually get into the story. It's not about the gameplay. I'm talking about the one where you have that Russian guy who helps you in prison.
Games, so.
Okay, and you know, it's the one that took place around the Nam era. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually getting into the story. Not that I'm like caring about the characters, but I'm like, I kind of want to see what happens next. I kind of want to see where this goes. And if it's the one I'm thinking of, which I can't remember which the number is, I'm like, holy shit, they fucking Fight Clubbed me. The AI character that helps you through most of the game doesn't exist. He's in your head the whole time. And it's not, and they actually got me. I was like, you know what? You did that well. Yeah, he's standing there in the groups, but you never, through other parts of the game, he doesn't interact with any of the other characters. And you don't notice that at the time.
I can understand when a game gets behind that. And if it's compelling enough, you have to say, like, I applaud you, sir. You came up with something that was brilliant, or get you invested or something like that.
You know, like, to me, the Saints Row games are so
I love Saints Row the Third.
Those games are so batshit insane. They are so unpredictable because literally anything can happen in these games. Hey, look at the deleted stuff that showed up in Saints Row 4, where a race of space dinosaurs come down at the end and they sing you the song of their people. Boom, boom, shaka-laka-laka, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, oh my God, who the fuck saw that coming?
How about Burt Reynolds as the mayor of the very city that you're in and trying to take over?
Yeah, Burt Reynolds is the mayor of Steelport.
Yeah, that was pretty entertaining. I'm like, can I get your autograph, sir?
Rowdy Roddy Piper plays himself.
I still remember the very first thing, because the only one I played was Saints Row the Third. But I just loved the very first intro where you're robbing a bank and everyone knows who you are, and the people you're robbing are asking for your autographs.
Well, that's because you're famous, and then the fourth game goes into where aliens take over Earth.
Yeah, I know the premise of the fourth game.
And you know, and then in Get Out of Hell, you go to hell, and it's the Saints Row games are batshit insanity. The Saints Row games are kind of like they said, Grand Theft Auto. Nuh-uh. We're going to smoke a bunch of crack and then make a Grand Theft Auto game.
It's basically, I would just say them as, does it make sense? No. Is it funny? Yes. Do it.
Well, there's also the weird visceral thrill. I mean, one of your main melee weapons is a baseball bat-sized, giant, boinking, purple penis called the Penetrator that you beat people to death with.
That's one of my favorite melee weapons. I remember I do have a funny story involving this. Funnily enough, back when my grandma Jody was still alive, she passed away last year due to brain cancer. But when she was undergoing treatment, she would have her son, or because she lived with her son, and which was my uncle. And funnily enough, he just now turned 18. I met him when he was 10, and I was in my 20s. At the time, he was half my age and played a lot of Grand Theft Auto. And I'm like, yeah, Grand Theft Auto's okay. But then I told him, like, I need to show you something. So I showed him Saints Row the Third. And my grandma was is sick in her bed watching us. And as soon as she saw me pull out the Penetrator, she busted out laughing. She's like, I need to get this. I need to play this game. This is hilarious.
Well, and, you know, it's got a lot of great dialogue. It's got a lot of genuinely funny moments.
Hey, Kenzie, you want to fuck? Let's do it, Dick.
The character interactions are hilarious. I think the way the characters interact with one another is some of the funniest shit in those games.
I'm like, when it's written well, it's very compelling and entertaining. And that's one of the things I do like when it comes to some of the things when it comes to video games. Is it entertaining? Yes. But I also prefer if it makes me think, too.
You know, but like, you know, the Saints Row games, I don't know what's going to happen now. For one thing, they kind of backed themselves into a corner with the plot. They've blown up Earth now. But although they did hint at the end of 4 time travel is going to be involved, because Get Out of Hell doesn't count as 5. That was a spin-off game. So Saints Row 5, maybe time travel, which could be interesting in a Saints Row game. But unfortunately, that's going to be a next gen game, and I don't have anything past a 360, so I
I
probably won't
have
be able to play
same
it.
here. Same here. My newest machine is a PS3, though I do have a laptop, and the newest game I have that is Sonic Forces, but it barely runs that.
Yeah, I don't. The most next gen I've got is I watch my girlfriend play stuff on her PS4.
Yeah,
So
my brother has a PS4 and he plays a lot of Destiny. I don't know why. I play
my girlfriend loves God of War and Devil May Cry.
I play a lot of obscure stuff. That's the one thing that most people at my college would always enjoy when I bring stuff over to the game room, because they have a game room with a bunch of TVs. Because I would bring stuff that you can only get in Japan, games and stuff like that, as well as I have to ask you this question, Josh, because you probably do. Do you own a Super Nintendo?
Not anymore.
Oh, when you did, have you ever looked inside the cartridge slot?
I'm gonna probably say no.
Well, if you do, I'm gonna look up a picture of it online and send it to you. But inside the cartridge slot of a Super Nintendo, there are two small little plastic tabs inside of it. Do you want to know what those plastic tabs are specifically for?
It's probably region coding or region locking.
Yes, every single physical Super Nintendo cartridge has two little grooves on the back of it to accommodate these little tabs. However, anything that, if you have a Super Famicom cartridge, which I do, but if you do not, it does not have those two tabs. All you have to do is just get some wire cutters, pop those little two tabs out, and your system is region free. That is the sheer level of region locking that they did for that system. It's hilarious.
I was always a Sega man back in those days, the Sega Super Nintendo wars. I was a Sega man.
I was a Sega man myself, but that was just something I discovered with the Super Nintendo, and I thought it was kind of cool. All right. Oh, I found an image that actually shows this. I'll send it to you. All right. View, copy image location. It actually shows you the different cartridge types, and just basically it's just a simple thing. It just shows you the difference between the shapes, and just certain region coding is basically that. Or in the case of, like, if you own a PS3, you can buy a game practically from anywhere on the face of the planet, pop it in your system, and 9 times out of 10 it'll play it. Because I like what Sony did with the PS3. They just said to the developers, you're in charge of region locking. We're not going to do anything. If they want to import from Japan, and you're a guy in Minnesota or Indiana, as in my case, and you want to play something from Japan, we still get the money. They can play it.
Well, I've never encountered a lot of the region locking on video games, but I have on DVDs
I
and
figured
VHS.
With VHS and DVDs, and there's certain ways to get around that. Or
Well,
in that case,
VHS, it's not really region locking so much as the PAL NTS. It's PAL NTSC, so it's just, strangely enough,
different
if you are in PAL, if you are in a PAL country, you can play NTSC as well. But if you're in an NTSC country, you can't play PAL as well.
Yeah, because NTSC is at 60 hertz, PAL is only at 50.
So it's strange
dimensions,
how that works.
Their dimensions are also different too, because I have a bunch of PAL games for my Dreamcast, which also have the option to be viewed in NTSC. So I know the differences, and I've done my research with that too. I just like with Japan with the games there, because they're already in NTSC. You don't have to worry about changing the scale of the image or whatnot, because it's going to be in the same aspect ratio as it is here, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but everything's in Japanese.
Unless you get and I'm not going to encourage like emulation, but let's face it, a lot of people do it, or if you have an old PS2, just using the free boot card, which is something really easy to set up. Some Japanese games actually have full translations into English. All the actual text and stuff like that is all fan translated in English. A prime example would be Namco Cross Capcom, which I love playing. And the reason I was able to beat it is because I have the English translation. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've never been into import games, really.
I'm like, it's just that there's certain games that you can't get anywhere else, but you see it in Japan. I'm like, why can't we have this? And it's for these reasons. But when you see someone playing these games in here in a public place, and they're like, oh, I've never seen that before. That looks awesome. That's how I was able to make so many friends here just at the when I first started going to college. It's because they just see me playing some really obscure stuff that they've never seen before, and I'm like, oh, it's because you can't get it here. And in that case, eBay is your friend.
Yeah, well, after my divorce, I realized I don't need all this shit. I've sold a lot of my video games, sold a lot of my videos, my DVDs, my laser discs. It's like...
Yeah.
I don't need any of this stuff anymore.
I'm like, I have a small collection of stuff that I've imported just because I'm like, hey, that looks cool. And I found them, and I usually find them at like flea markets or resale shops. And majority of them I got from resale shops. My first Super Famicom cart came from a flea market, and I got it for like $3.
Yeah, I don't really deal with that market anymore. I just more concentrate on spending time with my girlfriend, spending time with my granddaughter, writing my book. Collecting is not my thing any longer.
Yeah, it's something you would outgrow. But it's just, I'm like, you just see that one thing, which I do have one final story I want to go into involving collecting. I saw at a Trader's World, which is a gigantic flea market down in southern Ohio, near where my mom and my grandmother, no, not my grandmother, my mom and my aunt live, a dude had in his, he had, and I wish I had the $50 to pay for it, an actual, from the 70s, imported from Japan, an actual action figure of the original Getter Robo. And that thing is worth a lot. And I immediately knew what it was. And he's like, you actually know what this thing is? No one else has been able to identify it. Because it's an area full of rednecks. But he's like, you actually know what this is? And I'm like, yes, I wish I had the money to buy it. He's like, well, it's for $50. I'm like, I know. I still can't believe I'm passed up on that, because that would have been a nice thing to have. And just as bragging rights, I'm like, because that thing online nowadays, just to get it in the condition it was, at least a few $100s. And just finding something that awesome is, or like, it's just once in a lifetime thing that just sort of happens. I'm pretty sure you've had it with like certain movie memorabilia or something like that.
Well, you get to a point where paying your rent and eating is more important than not only buying this stuff but hanging on to this stuff. That's why I'm selling most of my stuff. I'm so broke, I need to.
Yeah, I'm selling stuff. I'm like, right now I'm going around selling ornaments that I hand make myself just for a little extra cash. And for a lot of the extra stuff that I have accrued over the years, because a lot of these items that I sell, I end up selling on eBay, 9 times out of 10 were given to me. So I got them for free. And I just I publish them for sale and people want them. But I can understand that too. You know, I have an emotional attachment. So.
Yeah, it's like, I spent my whole life collecting this stuff, but I don't really need it.
Yeah. I'm like, I had a few things that were in my collection. I'm like, I don't really need this anymore. I was big to it, and back in the day, let's put it on eBay or let's bring it to the local disc replay. Like I did for one PlayStation game that I sold at Disc Replay, and I got $100 for it, and they immediately put it on sale at their store for $200 because that's how much it is on eBay. But I still got $100,000, and I was able to pay, $100 for it, and I immediately paid my NIPSCO bill for that. So I had power for free for that month. I just traded a game, and that was it. That I haven't touched in like 3 years.
Yeah, it just, nobody ever wants to pay what something's worth, though.
Yeah.
I took a whole bunch of old RPGs to this place in Appleton, and I remember that they gave me, I think, $200 for the whole lot, and then they put almost every single one of the items up for $50 a piece, and I was like, you motherfuckers.
That's a shame. I mean, like, because I'm like, the last RPG thing I sold was an old school D&D book for or like the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual. A friend of mine wanted it, and I'm like, here, you can have it for like $20-$30. It was just the one book, and I know it could have gotten a bit more from it, but I got it for free. So and like, and he wanted it, and he was willing to pay that amount of money for it, and I'm like, okay, cool. I've already read it.
Yeah, well, when it comes to stuff like that, one of the things I used to do is, because I knew what stuff was worth, I wouldn't just stop if I had one. It's like, oh, sometimes I got 2, 3 of these. I can get rid of a couple of these. Yeah, sometimes I've got certain things that have emotional attachment. Like I've got a 1985 DC Superpowers Collection Robin mint on card that I don't really want for what it is, but I won't get rid of because when my son was little, that was the first thing he bought me. It was a birthday gift with his own money. So it's like I'm not going to get rid of that, even though I really, don't care about a Robin action figure.
It's kind of like my mom with her collection of Doctor Who stuff. And I'm talking about her old school Doctor Who stuff. Not the new series, because she watched it ever since it first aired. Or at least aired here in the States.
Yeah, well, I grew up watching Doctor Who on PBS as well.
Yeah.
Renting the tapes from the library. That kind of shit.
She also did that with the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Not the movie that remake, the original BBC version. Which that got moved, or that got bootlegged too, because that got moved from VHS to DVD because we had a burner at the time that could do that.
Yeah, I used to rent classic Star Trek tapes from the library.
I used to have this. I don't anymore. I wish, or like, because my stepdad used to have it. The entire series of the animated series for classic Star Trek on VHS. I remember watching that like crazy when I was a kid.
I have a bunch of those.
He doesn't have those anymore, sadly. I think he sold them too because it's like, I'm no longer attached to these. They can go bye-bye. And I'm like, I kind of wish I could have got them, but because that would just be something cool that I would have. Like, I still have my VHS copy of The Secret of Nim. I'm never going to give that one up. As well as my VHS copy of the Sonic movie that came out, or the Sonic anime movie that came out like in the late 90s. I'm not getting rid of that either, just because I want it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. It's just like, it's something cool that you don't see everywhere, and I'm like, okay, I like to have that. And if I had the extra money, or if now I'm like, I no longer have an attachment to it, I can just, I'm like, hey, I'll find someone who does. And I'll cut them a break. So
hopefully they pay you what it's worth.
Yeah, I've gotten a decent amount for some of the stuff I sold before. I can't complain. Well, we've been going on for an hour.
A little over an hour, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, anything you want to pimp out before we wrap up?
Well, I got a Patreon for 1201 Beyond. Every little cent helps. I've often said, if every single person who listens to Radiodrome donated $1 a month, I could actually do this as a living and not need a day job.
Yeah,
but people don't want to do that,
or people like me who can't really afford to do that, because I'm in a similar situation as you. So yeah.
Well, so there's the Patreon, or there's the shows themselves at 1201beyond.com. It's not out yet, but I'm writing a book on unaired television pilots for Schiffer Publishing. That'll be called Lost in the Static. Whenever that's going to come out, I have to finish writing it first. But otherwise, that's about it, really. Then,
of course, there's also stuff that you pimp out for Adam and Eve on your shows. Use any
Well,
one
yeah,
of the.
if anyone's into sex toys, if you use the promo code WHAT at adamandeve.com, you get 50% off of a single item, 3 free DVDs, free US shipping, and a free sex swing. All you need to do is use the promo code WHAT at adamandeve.com.
Which I have used one of those codes before. I bought, or I'm like, I remember I bought, this is a funny story. I did go to a porn shop once with a friend of mine, and the only thing I bought there was an energy drink because of the name alone. And I'm like, I can make a funny video out of this. I'm the crazy guy that will just buy something other than an actual movie or something. The energy drink was Pussy. That's what it was called. I'm like, I can make a silly video out of this.
Yeah, but you got to wonder if it tastes a little fishy or not.
I did it with my normal co-host because we did a video. It's on my YouTube back. It's like a few years back. I even asked him the question. I'm like, does the real thing taste like that? And he's like, no. Because I had to make the joke.
If you're with the wrong girl, maybe.
So I have stuff that I post on my Twitter at Superstrider86. I'm going to be posting those ornaments I make or whatnot. DM me if you want some. I'll be posting other stuff on there too. This show's going to go up later today. I'll message it to you, Josh, when it's done and it's up and uploaded and stuff like that. Because it's only going to take like 5 minutes to render out.
Just post it to my Facebook so then other people can see it.
Yeah. I'm like, feel free to show it on your show or show it on your show. I'm going to say goodbye, and you always close out with your shows with one phrase. What is that, Josh?
Keep one fist in the gutter, one fist in the gold.
Have a good night, guys.